Been there, done that.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
I'm going to hit this
Good evening.
button here and mute everybody. So I've got
Good evening, sir.
3 more people to enter, and we're at 97, 98, 99. So we have 1 more, and I think we've got everybody there, 100 participants. So that's all we can do on Zoom. Hopefully everybody else can pick us up over on the other page on YouTube.
And to
Tim,
shift everybody over.
Okay.
I'll be
And,
leaving
we'll-
early, J.R. Arthur. I've got another meeting to go to. So let somebody else in at about 8:25.
Okay, we'll see what we can do at that time. I'm going to go ahead, like I said, right now, and we are going to mute everybody. Okay. Let me get myself going here and see what we can do on the screens. They told me there are different ways I can set these screens up, so I'm going to see what I can do on my end here. Can everybody see me okay? I hope so. Anyway, good evening, and thank you all for joining me for this, the 3rd webinar, National Santa webinar. And before I get going, I do want to, since we just had Memorial Day yesterday, I want to send out a big salute and thank you for your service to all of the Santas and Mrs. Claus, any of them who are former service members who served us in our country. America truly appreciates everything that you've done to protect our freedom and our life, and so we do truly appreciate it. Okay, things worked out a little better last week. We did have 100 people here on the Zoom site, and additionally, of course, we had Facebook set up. I was hoping to have YouTube set up also, but I can't do both live streams from Zoom. So what we'll do possibly later on is post these videos on YouTube as separate items that we can have. I truly want to thank Ed Taylor and some of the other Santas out there who have had a little more experience in doing these live webinars and meetings for their advice and helping me out. And I do need a little help once in a while. So, well, actually most of the time I need help. Again, we're only limited to 100 viewing on Zoom, but again, Facebook, it's really great. And the really great part of the webinars in the live stream of Facebook is that if you miss this, or if you want to go back and, listen again, and maybe you didn't hear what I said, or you missed it. Maybe in my case, I have my dogs barking and sometimes I can't hear over them. So, you have to run out and do something. So you can always go back to the Facebook Live feed, and it actually is recorded on Facebook, and you can view it and see it there. And that's the remarkable thing. As of this evening, we had over 1,059 views of last week's webinar. It totally blew me away. Now, I know myself, I went there 4 times, and I'm sure there's some people who maybe went there, started watching it, and then closed it and had to go back again. But even if it was just half of that group, 500 viewing the webinar, that's quite a surprising amount of people who have done that. So I do appreciate everybody who has been able to view these webinars. And we'll be doing it again, hopefully every week for the next couple of weeks, trying to give you extra information and things like that. Okay. Last week, I answered some questions. I talked about the outlook for Christmas 2020. And the last half of the webinar, we had a special guest, John Laporto from Talk to Santa, and along with Elf Mike, who's the technical guru over at Talk to Santa. And a lot of people really enjoyed that program. I did get a lot of emails from people wanting to follow up on that. And hopefully later this week, I'm going to work with them, and we're going to host another webinar just for those who said they wanted more information on Talk to Santa. I know that some of you already went to their site and have, filled out paperwork and has signed up with them. So, again, you can contact them directly if you want, but we will do a webinar and try to maybe even take questions, answer questions, help people out. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that were interested in doing the live chats via computer, via the internet. And this is one way to do it. And the nice thing is they set everything up. They do all the marketing, all the promotion. You just sit at home and do it. So it is pretty good in that sense. We have some questions that have come in this week from some Santas and Mrs. Claus. First one, I got a couple of them, in fact, tonight, just in my notes here on our chat site from a few of the Santas and everything. And that is, what about the Raleigh-Durham School and the Houston School and other things like that? Okay. I've got dates set up for Raleigh-Durham, dates set up for Houston. What we're trying to do right now is make sure that we have meeting rooms that are the size we need to practice social distancing, because some of the hotels have requirements that we have to have a bigger room and space people out a little bit. So we're working on that. And as soon as we get confirmation of the rooms, then we'll actually post the dates and get the word out. But these will be in August. So we're looking at 2 weekends in August for the Houston School and the Raleigh-Durham School. The July school is already set up in Orlando, and we also have a September school that will be in Tucson, Arizona. So those things are up there. And I got a note here from somebody saying someone needs to mute the background, and I'm trying to make sure that I get everybody. I keep hitting the word mute all. What happens is somebody drops off and somebody new signs on, and the new person who signs on is not muted. So please, if you've got a little cursor on your board, mute yourself, and that way you won't come on by accident when something's going on. We don't need to hear the unusual sound effects of everybody's home and know what you're doing. So we'll move on to that. Well, the most common question that came in this week was about the sanitizer again. The same thing as last week. A lot of people wanted to know about the sanitizer. So again, a real quick I'm just going to show you. It is Clorox hand sanitizer. Okay, I hope you can all see this. It's bleach-free hand sanitizer. Comes in a little bottle. And this is a little pump spray. And there's different products like this. I think Purell has one, Lysol has one. They're basically an alcohol-based sanitizer with minimum 70% alcohol. Got to have at least 70% alcohol. Okay, so this is what you can do. In fact, I have my little bottle right here, as I can hold it up. That's how big it is, and it's very easy to use. Little pump top. It has a safety top. You can take it off and then just hit the spray, and you can see it there on the lens a little bit. But again, it works really great for sanitizing things. So they may be hard to find now, but just keep searching on the internet. And if not Clorox, somebody has to have something like that. Again, 70% alcohol. You could make your own using pure alcohol, water. They put a little glycol or glycerin in there with it, but just water and alcohol is fine too, into a little spray bottle, that type of thing. So you could make your own if you wanted, but it must be minimum 70% alcohol. Okay, so that's what you do. And again, it's Clorox bleach-free, and it's pretty good. The next question I got was about Santa scholarships. Somebody sent me a note because last year I gave away 10 scholarships to my Santa school, courtesy of Orbitz. Unfortunately, that was a one-time only situation with Orbitz, who was very kind to pay for those scholarships. So those are not available this year. However, there are other scholarships available from a couple of the Santa associations. I know I got an email from one of the Mrs. Claus out there who's on a board with iBirbs, and she said they're going to have 8 $250 scholarships this year for Santas or Mrs. Claus to attend a school. You have to be a member of iBirbs, and the school could be any one of the schools that they have approved. That's like my school for Santas, could be Charles W. Howard, it might be the American Events, Sat Bob's, there's a couple different training programs that they have approved, and your $250 could be used towards that if you are accepted and given a scholarship. So visit the iBurbs website. That's the International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santa. I think Forbes also has them, but they haven't sent me a note on it. But if they do, I'll mention it next week, okay? Because I want to make sure I give, fair exposure to everybody who's doing nice things like that, okay? By the way, the nickname, someone just posted it, I forgot to mention, the nickname for this is Sanitizer. Sanitizer, okay? We've been calling it that since back in 09, I think, when we started doing all of these, okay? Let me make sure everything's going good here. Okay, I haven't got any, I'm trying to double check, make sure we didn't lose anybody or got somebody new. I don't want to drop anybody off. Okay, that covers the scholarship. Let's get on to some basic questions. I've got one of them, and more of an involved question, and this is going to be, what I'm going to do is I've got a couple heavy questions, I guess I could call them, that we'll use for a good part of this, the rest of this hour. The first one is from Santa Roger Klassen. He wanted to know, where do I go to get personal liability insurance for being a professional Santa? And is it required? Okay. Well, real simple. In case you have to leave real quick, like J.R. Arthur said he has to leave soon, you can always go to my website, realsantas.com. Now, I have a bunch of websites out there. I'm National Santa. I have realsantas.com, and I have School for Santas. Okay, Real Santas is a site I use for finding jobs for Santas and things like that. And on that site, over on the menu, if you go onto the menu to where it says Become a Real Santa, click on that, and it has a couple links for insurance, background checks, and for Santa Emeritus. And the Santa Emeritus, it'll be a subject that I'll discuss in a future webinar. It's something that I've come up with for those Santas who, unfortunately have to retire and can't be Santa anymore. I think there's still an opportunity to have a little bit of Santa fun and be a Santa Emeritus. So I'll talk about that in a future webinar. So let's talk about the insurance, okay? The most common policies out there that are available for insurance are through your local Santa associations, okay? I'm referring to iBurbs again, International Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santa, Forbes, the Fraternal Order of Real Bearded Santas. There's SOS, Society of Santas. There's Lone Star Santas and other state groups, nationwide Santas. Lots of different places you can find real good liability insurance, okay? Most of these groups I just mentioned all get their insurance through Karcher Insurance, which is a company out of Las Vegas, and their insurance is actually from the Philadelphia Insurance Companies, which is a very well-recognized insurance company. And Karcher put this policy together quite a few years ago, and just for Santas and Mrs. Claus and what we're doing in our work. And they have 2 levels of insurance. And I'm going to quote what the prices were last year. I don't know if they're the same this year, but I'm sure I'll get an update or if I'm wrong. But what I recommend you do is you can go to the iBurbs website or the Forbes website or one of these other groups that you belong to or you participate with, and they'll have the correct information on what the insurance rates are this year. I know that last year, an insurance policy with a 1 million, 2 million coverage was $165. And this was an aggregate, $2 million aggregate, and $1 million per occurrence. The policy also allowed you to add an assistant like Mrs. Claus, okay? Or maybe you have a son or a daughter or someone who's your elf for all the things that you do. You can add them to your policy for an additional $70. So you're only talking $135 for your policy. And this will cover you only while you are a Christmas holiday season type person. So I guess it would cover Harry Hanukkah. It would cover Santa Claus. It would cover an elf or Rudolph and things like that. But it has to be for the winter holiday season. Okay, it doesn't cover you when you're not a Santa or a Santa type character. Okay, so in other words, if you're a clown, if you're a wizard, if you do magic, like we got a Santa out there, Joe McGree. Joe is a fantastic magician and has many characters that he does. In fact, I think Joe is signed on here. Joe is also, looks a little like Hemingway sometimes, but he's Safari Joe at San Diego Wild Animal Park. He does, looks like a Kenny Rogers, Riverboat Gambler character, lots of things that he does. He would need to get an extra coverage for his insurance. They do have that also. But again, the policy I'm talking about is just for Santas and Mrs. Claus, $165, $235 for a couple. Okay. Now, they have a second policy, which is double coverage. In other words, $2 million, $4 million. And the assistant, this is a $200 policy. And you can add your Mrs. Claus or your assistant for $75 more. So the total there is $275. Okay. So we're only talking, you know, not too much difference, you know. So we're talking a $235 or $275, $40 difference. Not bad. And again, both of these policies also have something special added, which is very neat. They have a $300,000 sexual, physical abuse, molestation coverage. Now, this is protection for you should you be at an event and somebody accuses you of something. If you've had a recent background check and you've passed the background check, that's all. They need to have that. And you have this insurance, this will give you extra money so you don't have to mortgage your house. That's what this is for. Because the biggest thing that hurts is when someone's falsely accused. And every once in a while, there's a crazy person out there who thinks Santa or Mrs. Claus or an elf or somebody, you know, was inappropriate. Well, if you've had a recent background check and you're cleared, then this insurance policy throws in that extra $100,000, $300,000. It's $100,000 per occurrence, but $300,000 overall. Okay, and it's there. So remember that you have to have a clear background check to get this. And you're not required to have it when you buy the insurance, but you must have it before you start work. Okay, because you can't get it after the fact. You can't get the background check after the fact. You've got to have it before you start work. But you don't have to have it when you get the insurance. You can do one before the other. And again, we'll talk about background checks in just a moment. Let's see, other characters. The guys like Joe McGreeve, Joe Mystic, as he goes by. Joe would, all they have to do is pay an additional $75, and he's covered for the full year in any character that he plays or portrays. So again, he could buy the $165, pay another $75, you know, and so he's got, you know, for, you know, $240, he's covered for the full year. Okay. So it's nice to have insurance like this. It's great to have that. By the way, if you have a Mrs. Claus and you're getting that year-round coverage because maybe she does other characters, maybe she plays Mother Nature when you play a wizard or something like that, you can add the second performer for, I think, $80. So it's not bad. They've got lots of little things. Karcher Campbell also added one more thing to this, which is great. For those Santas who are lucky enough to get opportunities to go overseas for the holidays, maybe it's just a quick trip visiting, you know, we've had some Santas, you know, who have gone over and visited the troops in Germany and in the Middle East and things like that. We've had one Santa last year. I know Randy Kitty, who's a friend of mine, he went to Japan and visited family there, but he also did a lot of performance and appearances as Santa to military groups and people there in Japan. So again, this policy would give him additional coverage while working overseas. So that endorsement is available at no additional charge through Karcher. And the final thing that they offer, sometimes you're going to have a client tell you that they need a certificate of insurance. They want proof that you have insurance. Sometimes they even want their name on the insurance certificate. Karcher does this free of charge. There's no additional charge for it. You can send them an email, you send them the information. They will then email you and email the client the certificate that's necessary for additional insurance coverage. No additional charge for that certificate, which is a great deal. Because if you're working, say you get hired to work at a Bass Pro Shop, or you're working at a supermarket locally, and the supermarket says, well, we need proof of insurance. Okay, it's a pretty standard thing in business nowadays. Again, Karcher issues these certificates at no charge to you. All you have to do is contact them and send them an email with the wording or the name of the company. Sometimes they'll want the name of the real estate company that owns the property where the store is and things like that. So multiple companies can be listed on the certificate, and there's no charge for it. So again, great thing to have. There's another company, before Karcher came up with the special package for the Santas, Gordon Bailey suggested to me and some other Santas that there was a company called K&K Insurance. K&K supplied insurance for a lot of entertainers, particularly Renaissance fairs, but they also insure county fairs and concerts and all kinds of live entertainment venues. And they offer insurance also. And they have policies that go from 1 million to 5 million. So again, you can get policies from them. A $1 million policy is $200. So it is a bit more than the insurance policy I mentioned with Karcher. But their policy automatically is coverage for the full year. Plus you can have it start any month of the year you want it to start. And they have a 2 million for 300, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, things like that, different coverages. And those are up in the $300 range, but they do have those available. This is your personal total coverage. You're not sharing it with anybody else. Your assistant or spouse, unfortunately, requires a second policy. So if there's two of you, that means paying, and you got the basic insurance of 1 million, that's $200 each. So now you're at $400, okay? They do cover rental of a facility. So if you were doing an event and you were producing the event yourself, and you rented a hall for the day, and there was a little accident at the hall or something like that, there's a $300,000 coverage should somebody throw a cigarette in a trash can or something. There's also a $5,000 medical expense per incident. It's not for you. It's to cover somebody who might get hurt while they're visiting you. Okay, in other words, a child trips over your shoe and chips a tooth, and his mom and dad take him to the emergency room. There's a little bit of a coverage there on that. It is United States only. There is no abuse or molestation coverage. They do not charge for the certificates I mentioned, so you can get the free certificates. And again, remember that any type of liability insurance doesn't cover you against you if you get hurt. Okay, this is liability insurance if somebody gets hurt working with you. Okay, so it doesn't cover you should you trip and fall or something like that. Other policies are offered by other associations. There's clown associations, different types of clubs. I think the Ventriloquism Society has some insurance policies. Specialty Insurance Agency, and I think they call Entertainers of the U.S. Is another name of their company. They have policies also available. They started originally doing clowns and stuff, and now they offer them to all kinds of entertainers. They do have coverage policies. They're a little less expensive, but I don't think the coverage is as good as what you can get from one of the Santa associations. So hopefully there's a lot of good information there. Again, you can find stuff on my website. You can also go to any of the association websites. They have lots of information on their websites as to what the coverages are and their fees and things like that. And see, I'm just checking a couple notes here. Could you spell the name of Karcher? Karcher is spelled K-A-R-C-H-E, K-A-E, I'm sorry, K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R, Karcher Insurance. And again, just go to the iBurbs website. And when you look for their insurance, the Karcher will be there. Go to my website, realsantas.com, go over to, the menu and drop down and you'll see insurance. You can get some information there for that type of stuff. Let me see what other questions I might have here. Someone mentioned there's another sanitizer called Clear Defense. Clear Defense, okay? And it's a plant-based. Anyway, I hope it's, if it's acceptable for COVID-19 and things like that. And that was from Santa Durwood. He sent that information to us. Most of these policies are for 1 year from the date you get your policy. Some of them do have, I think the specialty insurance does have a 6-month policy. So in other words, you could get it just, from September through, the spring, just for 6 months, if that's the only time you're performing. But again, the basic insurance that is offered by most of the Santa associations, the reason the price is $165 is that they figured out in their actuary tables that there's a limited number of days that Santa's and Mrs. Claus are going to be working. So their liability to the insurance company is very small window. So they can offer a reasonable rate and good coverage for the price. So, that's why you don't have to worry, even though it's a year's coverage. Plus, if you get a gig during the summer and you're going to be Santa for Christmas in July, you're still covered. Okay. So it's year round, even if you're just doing a little Santa gig somewhere. What if you're doing a volunteer thing during the summer and you go visit some kids as Santa and something happens? Nice to have that liability insurance coverage. Okay. And it's year round. Okay. I think that's most of my notes on insurance. By the way, and I mentioned Santa, Christmas in July. Someone just asked about that, so I mentioned that. Okay. In addition to insurance, the other thing that Santas are always wondering about is background checks. Okay. Why do we need a background check? I'm a really nice grandpa. I mean, nobody, well, it's peace of mind for people. Okay. And the reason we have to have background checks is unfortunately because there are some people out there who have put on the suit or, done things, and maybe not even as Santa. Maybe they're just party entertainers. And people were worried about the way they reacted and what they did at the party or the event. And people are worried about Santa. If you go back, to the 1920s and 1930s, a lot of people thought when you grew a beard, you were trying to hide something. There were times in certain societies when they thought people with beards were trying to hide things. Nowadays, it's pretty common. I think when the 60s and 70s came along, a lot of guys, the hippie generation beards and goatees started, and look at all of us, we're all baby boomers and we went through all of that. And I think when we all retired, first thing we wanted to do was throw that razor away. Well, fortunately, beards are very acceptable now. Even, having a 1/4 inch of stubble on the face seems to be quite popular with the young guys, But people worry about background checks. And this is peace of mind for your customers that you are a safe person. Every school district, YMCA, boys club, girls club, churches, hospitals, nurses, all these people have to have background checks. Anybody who's in the caring or dealing with children or caring with senior citizens or people who can't make judgments for themselves and we're trying to take care of them, they want background checks. So that's very, very important to have them. They don't cost much. In fact, I think iBurbs has a policy where they actually, some of your membership dues offset the cost of the policy. So it's less than $10, In some cases, if you're not part of an association, the most you're going to have to pay maybe is $45. The key thing to remember with your background check is it must have a national criminal database search. National, keyword national. Also a national sexual offender database search. These are the key things that people want. They don't want, when you get a background check, they want to make sure that you're safe. That you didn't just come over from another county and, they don't know what you did over in that other county. Well, guess what? National check checks everything. Okay. It's the only thing I think even greater than this one is maybe an FBI background check, which I know that some of the Denver Santas do. I've had it done, because of people that we're dealing with. They want a very thorough background check. They want to make sure that anybody visiting us, anybody we're touching or holding or dealing with is safe. Even when mom and dad are standing just a couple feet away, there's peace of mind that they know that the Santa has been vetted and that he is a safe person to be with. Again, you don't have to have that background check until you get ready to start work. But if you want that extra insurance coverage, make sure you have it before you start work, okay? Financial credit background checks are not required or necessary. Normally, they're not included in the national, but those types of background checks, if you have a credit background check or for let's say a gun permit, okay, those are not full background checks. They don't qualify for a full background check. Only in rare cases will an employer probably ask you about getting a drug tests or fingerprint checks and things like that. And usually this is when you get hired by a company and they require it of all their employees. Okay, singling Santa out is something they normally don't do. But if all the other employees have to have drug testing and they all have to have fingerprint testing, why then the Santas have to have the same thing too. And in some cases, if all the employees have to be bonded, the Santa has to be bonded too. It's just a requirement of everybody who is employed by somebody. And that's a whole nother subject we may get into in a future webinar. And that is these new laws like California has, where some of the Santas are worried about working because now the law says that everybody has to be hired as an employee. It's a crazy law. And New York is looking at it, and Pennsylvania and some other states are looking at it. And we'll cover that, and we'll cover some details of what justifies being an employee and not being an employee. But we'll do that, like I said, on a future webinar. Okay. Please know that some of the photo companies and malls may request background checks as employment. Years ago, a lot of times the photo companies did their own background checks. Okay, they did their own stuff and even did their own insurance. Nowadays, some of the companies, even Cherry Hill, I understand, are asking the Santas to pay for their own background checks and their own insurance. So that's one of the things you have to know, that when you get hired, you're going to have to put out, $180, $200 to get your background check and your insurance. So you will have to have that. But again, sometimes the mall or photo company will pay for it. It just depends on who you're working with. Some Santas can negotiate really good, may tell them, well, I want that added to what you're paying me. Depends on what you can work out with the company you're working for. Okay, let's see. Another question also from Santa Clausen. Do I need a business license? Okay. Many Santas do, especially if you're doing a lot of promoting and marketing in your community. You're really trying to get out there and be visible. Somebody from the city sees you out there advertising and marketing, they're going to want to know if you have a business license. Okay, so you probably have to have one. It's good business. Okay, business license is good business, just like insurance. Now, the easiest business license to get is one that's in your name. John Smith, business license. Okay. However, some Santas want a business that has a Christmassy name. I have the Kringle Group. Okay. That means you have to file a DBA, doing business as. And this is you fill out a form for a DBA, you go to a local newspaper, they post a little paragraph that says, Tim Connaghan is doing business as the Kringle Group. And then that little piece of information goes with it to the city, and you get your business license for the Kringle Group. So you would do the same thing for whatever company you have, but you have to do that. Now, if you're really getting into business for yourself, here's some handy advice. SCORE, SCORE, Service Corps of Retired Executives. Wonderful organization, okay? And that's exactly what it is. It is a corps or a group of retired business executives. And these people volunteer their time to teach and do training and seminars and workshops on starting a business, writing a business plan, writing a marketing plan, things like that. And they can help you. And, check out their websites. I think from what someone told me, there are now, because of the popularity of the internet, some video blogs and things like that from SCORE that you can actually sign in and view those to get ideas on how to get your business license and write your marketing plan and things like that. When I first started out in California, out in Orange, California, I went to SCORE workshops and I sat there, and one of the executives was the former vice president of Sunkist. Yeah, he was there, and he was helping us write our marketing plans. So it was a great opportunity, and they help entrepreneurs build their business. So again, a great place to look. And George Campbell just mentioned that he's been a SCORE presenter for over a decade. So thank you very much, Santa George, for helping out all kinds of people, not just Santas, in starting their own business. Okay. So SCORE, Service Corps Retired Executives, you can find them on the web. very easy. And I'm sure tons and tons of information. Find out if there's a local chapter in your area. Some of their workshops and events are free of charge. Sometimes there is a small fee if they have to rent a hall or a meeting room or something like that, but it's not that expensive for the knowledge that you will get from being with the people from SCORE. If you have any questions, send me an email and I'll be glad to try to connect you if you can't find where to go for SCORE. Okay. Let's see, I'm double checking my things. We were talking about beards and things like that. And I mentioned hiding the beards, hiding things. And one of the Santas said, yep, it hides a lot. My double chin. Okay. Well, I thought I had a triple chin, but maybe it's only a double. Anyway, someone asked a question about what about drug screens? Again, if they tell you got to have a drug screen, you got to have it. Okay. You can't tell them no, but it's probably a requirement because all their employees that are working at that mall or that location, if you're hired as an employee, not as a contractor, but as an employee, they may require it. Okay. So we have that. Let's talk about your identity as Santa or Mrs. Claus. Okay. And the reason I'm going to bring this up was because somebody sent me a note and says, how did you get the name National Santa? Okay, well, I have to be truthful about it. Someone told me my name was posted me as National Santa. I said, oh, I like the sound of that. And so I adopted it. But it is kind of unique that a lot of us look at trying to market ourselves. And unfortunately, there's not a real registry with the Santa industry like there are for clowns. Clowns come up with all kinds of cute, fun names. We're all Santa or all Mrs. Claus. So amongst ourselves, I'm Santa Tim and there's Santa Barry and Santa Rankin and different people. Sometimes we use last names instead of first names, but we all have Santa in there. So we kind of do that. So there's not really a registry. But if you're marketing yourself and promoting yourself in your community, where you live, you may want to have a little bit of an identity, something that when you talk to people, and sometimes in passing, you tell them who you are, and then they get home and they forget. If you've given them something that's easy to remember, then they can look you up on the internet or find you and contact you. So sometimes having an easy to remember handle is very, very important. It was 17 years ago when I started doing the Real Bearded Santa thing. I have been doing, actually 20 years ago. I've been doing Santa for 51, this is my 51st year. But those first almost 30 years, I was wearing the theatrical beard. It was about 20 years ago that I threw the razor away and started growing the real beard. 17 years ago, through some friends that I'd worked with, because I'd worked in Los Angeles for the March of Dimes, the American Cancer Society, and other charities. I produced telethons and fundraisers and things like that. I knew some people at various TV stations, and one of them was the producer of the Hollywood Christmas Parade. And I called him and I said, hey, you haven't seen me in a few years, but guess what? I'm now a real bearded Santa. And I belong to a club, a group of guys here in LA, and we'd like to find out if you can put a real bearded Santa in the parade. Prior to that, they'd actually had a comedian who put on a beard and wig and was in the float and on TV and everything. But children at home are pretty smart. And when they do a close-up, some kids know it's not a real Santa. And so I talked to him, and actually the third year after talking to him, they gave me the job. So 17 years now, I have been the official Santa for the Hollywood Christmas Parade. Also during that time, I had gotten jobs doing the Tonight Show and the Today Show and being in various TV shows, Mad TV and stuff like that. And so I kind of gave myself the nickname, I wanted Hollywood, So I found out that Hollywood Santa was taken. Someone up in Canada has the name Hollywood Santa. So I chose Santa Hollywood. And that was my new moniker. And that's what I promoted myself as. It was easy to remember. Santa and Hollywood. Just add those two together and people could find me. So that was my handle. And I used it for many, many years. It made it quite easy. Now, the official charity of that parade, the Hollywood Christmas Parade, was the Marine Corps Toys for Tots Foundation. And so every year we'd have the Marines at the parade. And it was very easy for me after a while to start volunteering to help them out whenever they needed. What do you need? Where do you need it? And it just happened to be that I was kind of bi-coastal. I lived in LA some of the year, in New York part of the year, back and forth, back and forth. They wanted Santa to do the bell ringing at the stock exchange. I said, I'll be there. You know, they needed Santa to come to an event at Quantico to help do some publicity pictures for their website. I said, okay, I'll fly there. I'll be there. So I would do these things. Then I started recruiting other Santas to help out the Toys for Tots. And I still do that. We still have a special website for the Marine Corps to use to help recruit Santas. And this year we're going to even try to do a little more contact work by giving Santas contact information that they can contact their local campaign direct and volunteer to help out the local campaign when they're doing any publicity or distribution. It's all volunteer work, but you volunteer and find out what time and dates that you might be available to help them out. Anyway, a couple of years of doing this, and the annual report came out for the Marine Corps one year, and they had some pictures. There's pictures of me in the parade and pictures at the stock exchange. And on the one picture, it was kind of neat. It had on it members of the U.S. Marine Corps and Lieutenant General Pete Osmond, retired, President and CEO of Toys for Tots, assisted by National Santa Tim Connaghan. And they gave me the name National Santa. So wow, that's kind of neat. So I've kind of taken it as my moniker. I do travel all over the country on their behalf and also for work that I do in different areas. So National Santa became part of my moniker. Anyway, I digress a lot on that. But by the way, Toys for Tots is my major charity. And I'm going to put a plug in here for them real quick. Each year they receive donations of toys and donations of money, which they use to help buy toys. So up to upwards of 17 million toys, 8 million less fortunate children receiving these toys, all, by a volunteer group of Marines and the Marine Corps League and all kinds of other volunteers. And what the unique thing is, they do all of this on an operating budget of 3%. 97% of any of the money they get goes back into the program to buy toys and take care of those children less fortunate. One of the highest levels of fundraising operating status of any charity in America. Only 3%. Very few charities can take and use that. A good guideline for many of the big charities is 15%. March of Dimes and other groups like that, because there are operating costs for their building and everything like that. Well, Toys for Tots only has to do 3% because of so many volunteers like you that help out on the campaign. Okay, let's move on here a little bit. Now, I was talking about my name, National Santa. Let's talk about your name and what's unique about it. I want to remind you that whatever name you choose should be something easy to remember. I'm always telling people in my class that pick out a landmark or something that's geographic to your area. Sometimes, if you live in Smithtown, you don't want to put Smithtown Santa because people might think you only go to Smithtown and not all of Long Island. So maybe Long Island Santa would be a better thing. And people will remember Long Island and Santa. Put the two together, they can find you on the web or the internet. I think this is what each of you needs to do in your own area. And if it's already taken, which unfortunately it usually is because there's so many Santas out there now, find other ways to have a landmark. In Nashville, we've got, Big Easy Santa. We've got, so many different names, Music City Santa and stuff like that, all using different terms and names that are nicknames for the Nashville area. In New York, we got a Big Apple Santa. We got, Broadway Santa, different names and things like that people have picked up over the years for being Santa. So pick a name that is easy to your area. And then if you can, get the website. So you become longislandsanta.com and everybody's going to find you, and then put up a little page, If you don't do a website, at least you could use that for your Facebook page, Long Island Santa, or whatever, again, your name is for your area. Using that type of stuff is going to make it easier for you to market yourself and promote yourself. By the way, that's probably the name you could use when you go get that business license and file the DBA. So, think of it that way. By the way, our nicknames as Santas and stuff, this all is kind of fun because, all the Santas are trying to come up with the best names and, promote themselves. We also have a few Santas out there that have legally changed their name to Santa Claus, okay? Because that's part of their marketing to be a bigger promoter, a better promoter to what they're doing. So let's see, I'm finding something here. Okay, had something up on my screen there. I had to check on something here. Okay, sometimes I'm talking to you and little things pop into the screen and I don't know what they are and don't know why I'm getting them. And I'm just hoping that I'm not getting kicked off, I'm getting knocked off of the internet or anything like that. Anyway, 25 years ago, the Santa industry, everybody was just about the same. Red suit, we were Santas, But in the last 25 years, so many Santas have developed their own individual personalities and characters that are their own edge to what they're doing as Santa. Like I said, there's a Broadway Santa, there's a Music City Santa, there's Santas who have long robes and Santas who have fancy robes. 20 some years ago, Brady White was the only guy that had all the different outfits and stuff and was, a big promoter and things like that. A few Santas had old world suits, but most of us were just Santa Claus. Now we have many of the Mrs. Claus out there making beautiful suits and wardrobe for the Santas and vests and other things like that. And so we have a lot of people in character as Santa in different ways and lots of different names. And I kind of think of it like, when back in the days when we were in high school or junior high, we kind of copied our friends. Everybody wanted to wear the same pair of denim or the same type of shirts and things like that, But now as Santa Claus, it's not just red. We got to have red with trim or red with special buttons on it. Or maybe I've got to have suspenders that attach to my belt and my belt is hand tooled. Or maybe I've got one of Charles Christie's great big buckles, that says SC or Santa, different things that we all want. It's kind of like one guy owning a Chevy and another guy owning a Ford, how we compare each other. And well, I've got wider rims on my, car. I've got bigger wheels. And he says, yeah, but I've got, a fuel injection. And, it's Tim Allen's little, bigger and better. So some of our Santas are having fun doing all this thing in wardrobes. And we do the same thing with our names and stuff like that. It's all in fun. What I really love is the fact is we all have these different characters and these different personalities and different things we do. And yet we're all friends and we all do a lot of things together. Going to move on into just a little bit of information, insight into Christmas 2020. And I gave you a little bit of information last week. And through the Reindeer Network this last week, I got some information here. Let me see if I can find the worksheet here. Because I did talk about different photo companies and things that are going on. And Cherry Hill did send out a letter to a lot of their Santas and thanking them for their patience and waiting and things like that. And I've talked to a couple other companies that are doing some things. And what I'm finding out is that the photo companies in the malls and everybody else are still a little skeptical, still worried about what's going to open up. They know it's going to open up, but they don't know what limits are going to be placed on them as to regards to social distancing. The more we're looking at it every day, it looks like things are going to open up pretty good. And the way it's being talked about, there is a strong discussion that there's nothing is going to be shut down again after this is over. In other words, we'll cope with whatever happens. Hopefully, we'll have some treatments to protect us. Hopefully, there'll be a vaccine and maybe we can get inoculated and against the viruses and things like that. As I mentioned last week, take your flu shots and things like that. But in the meantime, even Cherry Hill is asking everybody to be patient and wait. They're not sending out contracts just yet. I've understand someone told me he did get a contract, but I think until it's countersigned by them, it's not, a lockdown type thing. I've also got some contracts that I'm working on with some companies, and they have sent me notes asking me if I can remove the refund part of my contract, where it states that if they cancel anytime more than 30 days out or 60 days out or whatever, then I keep the retainer. They don't want that. They want a full refund if they cancel, if it's due to COVID-19. So there may be some problems with some of that some of us are going to have to work on. We may want to, in my case, I'm hoping to maybe lower the amount of the retainer, at least get a minimal retainer for the Santas that are working with me, because I think the Santas need to have a little bit of money because they're holding the whole date. They're holding the whole month to work in a mall or a shopping center. They should have something in their hand, even if it is canceled later. Okay, and so that's what I'm going to try to stick to it as much as I can. But again, these companies are going to be asking for things like that because they don't want to be stuck holding the bag. We don't want to get stuck holding the bag. So if you have any input on this, any ideas on this, suggestions on this, send me an email. Let me know. I'd love to, maybe to delve into this a bit more on a future webinar, because I think all Santas want to know how we can have a basic contract. By the way, I do have a basic contract on my School for Santas website, and you can go to the downloads and find that contract, and it's got some of those fancy words for contracts and stuff like that. Generally, I only give it to the students who are attending the school, but I'm telling all of you, you can find it on my website. So it's open out there for everybody. Let's see. Well, I hope that all the information I've shared here has been pretty good. Let me see if I've got anything else to give you. I think that's pretty much, I'm going to end it. I guess I'm going to end early tonight. Maybe I can open it up to some questions here. And because we have, let's see, 10 minutes left, and we can do some things. So I'm going to go over here to the, I've got the chat box, but I'm also going to get the participants box. And if somebody wants to say something, why send me a note in the chat box and we'll see if we can open you up. Okay. Oh, somebody, I did get a note here. Anthony Pacelli did have a note here. He wanted to tell us about the podcast I did with him last Friday. We talked about quite a few things on his on his site and everything. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do something crazy. Let's see if I can move down this page here. I've got a bit all, and we are going to, I'm going to try to unmute people. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to allow everybody that wants to unmute themselves. Okay, 1 second. Allow participants to unmute themselves. Okay. So if anybody wants to ask a question, you can click a button and unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, it's Anthony. Just wanted to let everyone know it's the Santa Cast podcast, and I just published it yesterday in honor of your being a veteran as well for Memorial Day. A wonderful, wonderful interview that Santa George McIver and I did with Tim. A lot of information. Tim is a wealth of information. And our podcast, this was episode number 32, and we've got an ongoing podcast, ongoing recordings. And Santa Tim's interview was fantastic. So anybody and everybody should take a listen and learn a lot from this man.
Thank you, Anthony. What's the location they can find it?
It's the Santa Cast podcast, and it's on iTunes. It's also on Facebook, and I believe we put a little thing on Instagram as well. But,
I think you sent me an email today earlier. I'll include that in my next news item I send out to everybody.
Right.
I see Tom Sharon and Jack Smithers there. Did you guys want to say something?
Yes, sir. When can we register for the Winter Springs School in Florida.
The Orlando school,
Yes.
it's already online. It's School for Santas.
Okay.
You can go right to School for Santas. You'll find it there. It's a weekday class on this one. It's not weekends. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Understand.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Thomas. I see Thomas Sharon. Did you want to say something? No, you have to unmute your mic.
No, I don't have anything. I'm just enjoying it.
By the way,
Surprised you recognize me. I look a little
yeah,
different.
by the way, Thomas is one of the experts at styling and taking care of the theatrical beards and wigs. And I think his wife probably wants him to shave now, but
Yeah. I never did this before. It's a new adventure. A little itchy, but new adventure.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to offer? Just unmute. You have to unmute yourself to ask a question, though.
Hey, Tim, this is Rich Dwyer down here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I just want to thank you for all the information and what you've been bringing up these past few Tuesdays. It is a welcome change to the blithering stuff that we get every day from everything else. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Rich. Anybody else?
Yes, Santa Tim, Santa Dave Nelson out in California. I just wanted to pass on to everybody that if you haven't had a chance to go to Tim's schools, you really need to do it. I have gone to his school, 4 or 5 times. I think I go every other year, and I enjoy going. Plus, you pick up a lot of information at the classes, so it's well worth your time spent in his schools, and I recommend it highly.
Well, I'm going to say something here, and it's the same thing I say at the beginning of every one of my schools. You can learn from the internet. You can learn from all your fellow Santas, talking with people. You can attend my school or any of the other schools. Just try to remember that the 90% of what we learn is what we learn sitting in the chair. But there are a lot of places, and the thing is, you just have to apply yourself. Okay, so whether it's, like I said, coming to my school or Sat Bob's or Charles W. Howard, whatever, it's one of those things. And Dave, did you bring enough for everybody?
Absolutely. I will talk to Mrs. Claus and make sure that I can try and shove it through the microphone to everybody.
It's that old military thing. Remember, you're standing in formation and somebody's chewing gum, and the drill sergeant says, "Did you bring gum for everyone?"
Yeah. As soon as I put it in my mouth, I'm going, wait a minute. I remember this. I know what's coming.
Okay. Rich Dwyer, did you have something? You got to unmute yourself. You have to unmute your microphone. Oh, I can't hear Rich, so he's got his mic off. Anybody else have anything?
He's not.
Oh, yeah. I spoke earlier, Tim.
Yes, Rick. Okay, good. Thomas McDonald, I guess. Oh, let's see. No, that's Rich Dyer. Okay, who else do we got here? Anybody else?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Is this Thomas McDonald? Oh, Santa 2020. Okay, go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, okay, Santa 2020. I don't know how that got on there, Tim. It just showed up on my thing, and there's no way to rename ourselves when we're doing
yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is.
Not when you're doing the webinar approach.
Actually, they told me there is a way you can change it while you're in the middle of a webinar.
I tried.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't any way. The other thing that I wanted to mention
anyway,
to you
what's your question?
is when you mute everybody from your end, we can unmute ourselves individually by just holding down our space bar. But when you take away or, allow us all to unmute ourselves, that doesn't work anymore.
Well, I went to a button here and it told me to allow everybody to talk. So,
right. But that and that leaves it up to us individually to unmute ourselves.
You have to do it. And I actually, when somebody came up, I would see a note that says ask to unmute. I would click the ask to unmute, that type of thing. So, okay. Anyway, thank you.
Santa Tim.
Who's next?
Good night, Tim.
Oh, hello. How are you there, Mr. Dyer?
Doing great. Good to see you again.
One of our fellow Knights of St. Nicholas. Have you been doing any traveling this year?
But,
Wow.
I got pretty much booked for the season, last season, and staying right here in the Raleigh Lake Forest area.
Good.
So enjoyed being with you out in LA.
I'm sorry, what?
I enjoyed being with you out in Santa Monica year before.
Oh, we were lucky on that, and Orbitz was so good to us afterwards, you know. It allowed me to have 10 Santas go to the school, so that was really nice of them.
Can I still work on my PhD in Raleigh this year?
Certainly, certainly. Be glad to, be glad to. I see, I don't know, does Tom Schilling wanted to say something? I see his name he's popped up.
Oh,
keep looking
Santa Tim, it's good to see you. I started with your school in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've never been the same.
Thank you very much, Tom. I see a good friend down in Florida, Marcus.
Hey, how you doing, Tim?
Very well, very well. How are you?
Good. So you grew in a little bit, huh?
And unfortunately, I can't reach over to my counter over here. I have that eyeglass cloth sitting over here
yeah?
on top of sitting on top of a dresser. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I actually am coming up with a mask and what they call a gaiter. That's the long thing you put on your neck, and it looks like the nose and the mouth and the beard of Santa Claus.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, I've seen some masks done by some of the Mrs. Claus. They're out there making them, and actually, someone sent me a couple of them for my wife and I to use. So it was very, very nice. So, well, it is time for me to sign off, guys. It's 9 o'clock. Again, if you know of anybody that missed our grouping, they can pick all of this up on Facebook. And we'll be back again next week with more things to talk about. And for those of you who were interested in Talk to Santa, we're going to try to set up a webinar here in the next couple of days just for that. And it's for those people who actually sent an email and said they wanted more information. We're just going to put all of you together, and it'll be where we can ask questions also. It'll be a two-way street. So you guys take care. God bless you all. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim.
God bless you all.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye,
Thanks,
all.
Tim.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
See you next
Good night,
week.
everyone.
you.
Good night, Tim.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, Jim.